My parents stole my card and spent $50,000 on a luxury trip for my sister. When I called my mom, she laughed and said, "We maxed out your card. It was wonderful for us. Did you think you could hide money from us? Consider it your punishment for being stingy." I just said, "You guys." But they didn't know what was coming next. I've always been the responsible one in the family for as long as I can remember. My parents instilled in me that I should strive, study, work hard, and be independent. Meanwhile, my sister Fernanda, 22, received completely different treatment. For her, it was expensive gifts, spectacular birthday parties, and "don't worry, princess, we'll take care of it." I'm 30 years old, and since I started working at 18, a large part of my salary has gone to supporting my family. At first, they were small contributions, but 3 years ago everything changed when my father suffered a heart attack. Doctors forbade him from continuing his construction work, leaving the family without its main source of income. My mother never worked outside the home in her 52 years of life. She always said that her place was in the home, although the reality is that she spent more time watching soap operas than cleaning or cooking. When Dad's heart attack happened, I didn't hesitate for a second. I took over the mortgage payments, utilities, health insurance, Fernanda's private university. I practically became everyone's breadwinner. I sacrificed my own dreams of traveling, buying an apartment, even taking courses to advance my career, all so that my family would be okay. "Victoria, couldn't you contribute a little more this month? Your sister needs a new laptop for her studies," was my mother's constant request, no matter how much I was already giving. "It's the least you can do for us after all we've sacrificed for you," my father added every time I expressed my concern about finances. "And Fernanda?" Fernanda just looked at me with that air of superiority while commenting, "It's your obligation to help the family. If you don't want to, it's because you're a selfish miser." Even so, I kept going. I worked overtime, got a second freelance job on weekends, and even sold some of my most prized possessions. I didn't care. It was my family, and I loved them unconditionally. Or so I thought. Everything changed that Tuesday. I was in the middle of a crucial presentation with the company's most important client when my phone started vibrating insistently. At first I ignored it, but when I noticed it was my bank, I got worried. I asked for a short break and checked the notifications. The blood ran cold in my veins. Approved charge. Grand Paris Hotel, €3,200. Approved charge. Chanel Boutique Paris, €4,500. Approved charge. Business class flights Madrid-Rome, €2,800. And so on, dozens of notifications. I quickly logged into my banking app and saw that my credit card, the one I kept for emergencies and which had an exceptionally high limit due to my good credit history, had been used to the limit. The total amount, $50,000. I ran to the bathroom trembling, breathing with difficulty. I dialed my mother's number with shaking fingers. "Hi, daughter, have you seen how wonderful it is? We're in Paris," she answered with a cheerful voice that churned my stomach. "Mom, what did you do? How could you use my card to?" "Oh, please don't be dramatic," she interrupted me. "We maxed out your card. It was wonderful for us. Did you think you could hide money from us? Consider it your punishment for being stingy. Your sister deserved this vacation after so much stress with her studies." I could hear laughter in the background, Fernanda's voice shouting, "Thanks for the trip, little sis." I felt like I couldn't breathe. A coworker, Elena, entered the bathroom and found me hyperventilating, leaning against the wall. "Victoria, are you okay? Do you need help?" I showed her my phone as tears streamed down my face. She looked horrified at the charges and then hugged me while I sobbed uncontrollably. "You guys," was all I could say to my mother before hanging up. But they didn't know what was coming next. Elena sat me down on the break room couch and brought me a glass of water. "This is a crime, Victoria. What they did is fraud. You have to report them." "They're my family," I murmured, although for the first time in my life that word sounded hollow. "No, Victoria," Elena said firmly. "Family doesn't steal from you. Family doesn't mock you. What they are is a group of abusers who have been exploiting you for years." Her words fell like a bolt of lightning in my confused mind. How many times had I normalized my family's behavior? How many times had I justified their unreasonable demands, their criticisms, their ingratitude? As I returned to my desk with the ruined presentation and profusely apologizing to my boss, a cold determination began to form within me. One thing was clear: things couldn't go on like this. I took my phone and wrote a short message to my mother. "Enjoy your trip. It will be the last one you take at my expense." That night I couldn't sleep. My mind oscillated between disbelief, rage, and a deep sense of betrayal. How could they have done this to me? Did they really believe they were entitled to my money? To $50,000 that I had earned with my sweat and tears? The next morning I called the bank to report the fraudulent charges, but I stopped at the last minute. If I reported my family, they could face criminal charges. As much as they had hurt me, a part of me still hesitated. Was I ready to take this to the limit? I decided to investigate first. I opened Instagram and there was Fernanda's account, full of new photos. My sister posing in front of the Eiffel Tower with a Chanel bag. My parents enjoying dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Colosseum in Rome. Breakfasts on balconies overlooking the Mediterranean. And then I saw it, a post that left me breathless. "Surprise vacation thanks to my parents." And in the comments my mother's reply: "You deserve this and more, princess. Luckily your sister can finance these little luxuries for us." Fernanda had replied, "Yes, thanks Victoria for being so generous with your family." My own sister had tagged me, making my humiliation public. It wasn't enough to steal from me. They needed to openly mock me. I took screenshots of everything. Something inside me had definitively broken. And with that break came a clarity I had never experienced before. Elena, my coworker, had sent me the contact information of her cousin, a lawyer specializing in financial fraud. I called her that same afternoon. "Technically you could press charges for fraud," she explained after hearing my story. "But I understand it's complicated when it comes to family. What I do recommend is that you document everything and take steps to protect your finances immediately." I followed her advice. I canceled all my cards, changed passwords, and requested additional security alerts. I also checked my bank accounts and discovered something that chilled me to the bone. For months, small amounts had been transferred to my mother's account. They had been systematically robbing me, little by little, probably to see how far they could go. While I waited for them to return from their luxurious 2-week trip through Europe, I decided to visit my maternal grandmother, the only person in the family who had always been fair to me. "I'm not surprised," said Grandma Maria when I told her what happened, her wrinkled face shadowed by sadness. "Your mother always had trouble understanding boundaries. When she was a teenager, she stole her best friend's engagement ring because she liked it better than her own. When they confronted her, she simply said that her friend had an obligation to give her better things because she had more money." Grandma slowly got up and pulled an old metal box from under her bed. Inside was a yellow diary. "I've kept this for years. These are my notes on your mother's behavior since she was a child. I always hoped she would change, but she never did. And I'm afraid she's passed that mentality on to your sister." I read a few pages of the diary, and the similarity to my current situation was chilling. My mother at 15, wearing her friend's clothes without permission and returning them damaged. At 18, borrowing money from my grandfather's wallet. At 25, expecting my grandmother to take care of her children for free while she went shopping. "Victoria," said my grandmother, taking my hands in hers, "there's something you need to understand. Your mother and your sister are not going to change because they don't think they're doing anything wrong. In their distorted mind, the world owes them everything they want." "Then what do I do, Grandma?" I asked, tears sliding down my cheeks. "Protect yourself. Set clear boundaries. And most importantly, stop allowing them to use you. Love is not servitude, my dear." That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly. When I woke up, I knew exactly what I had to do. I waited for my family to return from their trip. When they finally returned, tanned and laden with purchases, I showed up at the family home. "Victoria!" exclaimed my mother with false cheer. "We were just talking about you. Look what a nice souvenir we brought you from Venice." She handed me a small glass gondola that probably cost no more than $1. I looked at her incredulously. A $1 souvenir after spending $50,000. Money that I earned working 60 hours a week while you enjoyed life. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," my mother replied, waving her hand dismissively. "We're your family. Everything you have is ours. It's the least you can do for us after all we've sacrificed, my father added. Fernanda just rolled her eyes. If it bothers you so much, why didn't you say so before? You always play the victim. I took a deep breath. I've made a decision. Starting today, I won't pay the mortgage or the utilities or your studies, Fernanda. Not another penny. They looked at each other, first with disbelief, then with anger. You can't do that, shouted my mother. You'd leave us on the street. Leave you on the street? Dad can find a job adapted to his condition. You, Mom, can work for the first time in your life. And you, Fernanda, can study and work like millions of students do. You're a disgrace, shrieked Fernanda. You've always been jealous of me.
No, Fernanda.
I've always been the fool who let you abuse me. But that's over. I handed them an envelope. Here's a payment plan for you to return the $50,000 you stole from me. You have two options. Start paying me monthly or face a lawsuit for fraud. My father paled. My mother began to cry theatrically. Fernanda stormed out of the room, slamming the door. And one more thing, I added as I headed for the exit. I'm no longer your ATM. I'm a person with rights, with dreams, with my own needs. And I deserve respect. Leaving that house, I felt like I had taken off a 30-year weight. My phone vibrated with a notification. Confirmation of my first appointment with a therapist specializing in dysfunctional family relationships. It was the first step on my new path. That night I received dozens of messages and calls. Threats, pleas, manipulations. I ignored them all. My decision was made, and for the first time in my life I was putting my needs first. The war began the next day. My mother, always the queen of drama, posted on Facebook. How sad it is when children forget those who brought them into the world. After sacrificing my whole life for my daughter, now she abandons me when I need her most. Ungrateful children. A mother's pain. My sister followed with a post on Instagram. Some people are so selfish that they prefer to see their family suffer rather than share their blessings. Karma exists, toxic sister. Family comes first. The notifications wouldn't stop coming. Uncles, cousins, even family friends sent me messages asking what was going on, why I was abandoning my parents if I had no heart. Their version, of course, omitted the small detail of the stolen $50,000. After 3 days of enduring this digital harassment, I decided to break my silence. I posted a single message on my social media, attaching selected screenshots showing the fraudulent charges and my family's taunts. I want to clarify a painful situation. After years of fully supporting my family financially, I discovered that they used my credit card without my consent, spending $50,000 on a luxury trip to Europe while I worked 2 jobs. I have not abandoned anyone. I have simply decided not to continue being a victim of financial and emotional abuse. I appreciate your understanding and respect for my privacy at this difficult time. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends, colleagues, and even distant relatives expressed their support. Many shared similar stories of family financial abuse. Several sent me private messages acknowledging that they had always noticed my mother and sister's toxic behavior, but hadn't dared to say anything. Why did you allow this for so long? A cousin asked me with genuine curiosity. It was a good question. Why had I allowed it? My therapist helped me understand that I had been conditioned since childhood to be the family's savior. The responsible one. The one who had to sacrifice herself. She also helped me recognize that my sense of self-worth was tied to how much I could do for others, especially my family. Change begins with setting healthy boundaries, she explained in one of our sessions. And you must be prepared for resistance. People who have benefited from your lack of boundaries will fight tooth and nail when you impose them. She was right. During the following weeks, the resistance was fierce. My mother called me crying at 3 a.m., saying that they couldn't pay the mortgage and that they would soon be on the street. My father, who had always been more reserved, sent me messages blaming me for destroying the family. Fernanda was the most aggressive. She sent me a particularly cruel message. I hope you're happy in your bitter spinster apartment while we suffer. I always knew you were jealous of me because Mom and Dad love me more. Someday you'll need our help and we'll turn our backs on you just like you did. I saved all these messages. I didn't respond to any of them. Elena, my coworker who had supported me from the beginning, invited me to join a support group for people who had suffered family financial abuse. There I met other women and men who had gone through similar situations. Their stories gave me strength to stand firm. Meanwhile, important changes were taking place in the family home. My father reluctantly started working part-time as a supervisor on a construction site, a position that didn't require physical effort, but took advantage of his experience. My mother, for the first time in her adult life, had to look for work. After several failed interviews, it turns out that watching soap operas and criticizing your eldest daughter are not valued skills in the job market. She got a job as a cashier in a supermarket. Fernanda, perhaps the most affected by the change, had to leave private university and transfer to a public one. She also started working as a waitress part-time. Her Instagram posts changed drastically, from photos in fancy restaurants to complaints about difficult customers and sore feet after 8 hours of standing. 3 months after the incident, I decided I needed a more drastic change. I quit my job, where I had already been promoted thanks to all the time and energy I previously devoted to my family, and accepted a better offer in another city 4 hours away. I found a cozy apartment overlooking the park, and for the first time I spent money on myself. Nice decor, new clothes. I even signed up for dance classes, something I had always wanted to do. One afternoon while unpacking in my new home, I received a call from my grandmother. "Your mother is telling everyone that you abandoned them, that you're an ungrateful daughter," she said bluntly. "I'm not surprised, Grandma." I sighed. "I told them to shut up," she continued, with a proud tone that made me smile. "I reminded everyone at the family reunion how you've supported your parents and your sister for years, and how they repaid you by robbing you. I showed them the evidence. I think they finally understand what they did." "Thank you, Grandma," I replied, genuinely touched. "But I don't expect them to understand. I just want to move on with my life. And that's exactly what you should do, my child. By the way, I'm planning to visit you next month. I want to see your new apartment." 6 months after the theft, my father sent me an email. Unlike previous manipulative messages, this one seemed sincere. "Victoria, it has taken me time to understand the magnitude of what we did to you. I have no excuses. For years we burdened you with responsibilities that weren't yours, and then we betrayed you in the worst way. I've been reflecting a lot since I started working again. The money I earn now barely covers our basic expenses, and that has made me appreciate everything you did for us. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm deeply sorry. I've started depositing small amounts into your account to return what we owe you. It will take time, but I will keep my word." I didn't reply immediately. I needed to process my feelings. On the one hand, I appreciated his words. On the other, the wound was still fresh. Finally, I sent him a short message thanking him for his acknowledgement and wishing him well. My mother and Fernanda, on the other hand, continued to refuse to accept responsibility. Occasionally, I received passive-aggressive messages or attempts at manipulation that affected me less and less each time. A year after the incident, I was unrecognizable. I had been promoted in my new job, had a circle of genuine friends, had traveled alone for the first time in my life, using the same credit card that my family had abused, but now for my own enjoyment, and had even started a relationship with someone who respected my boundaries and admired my strength. My therapist told me in our last session, "Victoria, you've come a long way. You went from being a person who based her worth on pleasing others to someone who respects and prioritizes herself in a healthy way." She was right. The road hadn't been easy. There were days of doubt, nights of tears, moments when guilt threatened to make me back down. But every time I felt myself faltering, I looked at the screenshots of that trip, remembered the taunts, the nonchalance with which they had abused my trust and my money. Recently, my grandmother turned 80. I organized a small celebration in my apartment and invited the whole family, including my parents and Fernanda. My father came, sober and respectful. My mother and Fernanda declined the invitation with vague excuses. During the party, my grandmother took my hand and led me to the balcony. "Do you know what makes me most proud of you, Victoria?" she asked, her eyes shining. "What?" "You found the courage to break a toxic cycle that has existed in our family for generations. Your mother couldn't do it, but you did." Her words touched me deeply. I had never thought of my situation as breaking a generational cycle, but it made sense. Today, as I write this from a cafe in Barcelona, my first international trip fully funded by me, I wonder if I did the right thing. Should I have been more understanding, more patient, less drastic? But then I remember the words my therapist had me repeat like a mantra. I am not responsible for the happiness of others. I deserve respect. My needs matter. If I have learned anything from this painful experience, it is that true love does not exploit, does not steal, does not humiliate. True love respects boundaries, acknowledges mistakes, and celebrates the other's achievements. And sometimes the most loving way to treat those who have hurt you is to allow them to face the consequences of their actions, not out of revenge, but because it is the only way they can grow.